Agatha Raisin and the poisoned Petunia at Potted Gardener's plot. Humiliation blooms into murder when a village gardening rivalry turns deadly, and Agatha Raisin finds poison lurking beneath the petunias. As gossip thickens and suspects sprout like weeds, Agatha digs for the truth. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? And subscribe so you never miss upcoming mysteries. Will this be as dull as it looks? Agatha muttered, eyeing the WI projector with deep suspicion. Doris Simpson shot her a warning look, the sort that suggested the evening would indeed be dull, but that Doris intended to enjoy every second of enforcing it. The WI hall buzzed with that brand of polite anticipation peculiar to village women who secretly hoped for scandal. Chairs scraped, programs were shuffled, someone coughed theatrically. Agatha regretted attending already. She should have stayed home with Hodge, who at least didn't judge her horticultural failures, unless one counted the time he'd urinated on her basil plant, which she did not. Doris cleared her throat. The hall braced. "Ladies," she began, "welcome to our educational evening, Gardens of Glory." She pressed a button with queenly self-importance. The projector clicked. Onto the screen appeared a magnificent display of roses in regimented rows. The hall gave a collective sigh of admiration. Agatha leaned back, unimpressed. She disliked roses on principle. They had thorns, smug faces, and made her sneeze. The next slide changed, revealing tubs of cheerful geraniums. The WI hummed approvingly again. Then Doris clicked one more time, and Agatha's stomach dropped. There, filling the screen, was her patio, not lovingly lit or taken from a flattering angle, but captured in the harsh sunlight of last summer. 3 pitiful tubs containing shriveled stalks, 1 broken pot, and a dead fern slumped like a fainting maiden. "Now," Doris announced, "this is an example of what happens when one overestimates one's abilities." The hall erupted. Laughter rolled from row to row, gentle at first, then unrestrained. Agatha felt heat climb up her neck. Her smile stiffened into something dangerous. "That photograph," she said loudly, "was taken by someone with a grudge." "Agatha dear," Doris replied sweetly, "it was from the Evesham Echo feature about village gardening. I believe you submitted it yourself." The laughter doubled. Someone actually wheezed. Agatha rose, ready to flee, hurl the projector at Doris, or both. But before she could select an appropriate response, Doris raised a hand. "Do sit down. We've a guest speaker." The lights came up slightly. A sleek woman glided forward, all black trousers, glossy hair, and expensive perfume. She smiled like someone unveiling a new luxury handbag. "I'm Saskia Bell," she purred, "founder of Potted Gardener's Plot, Castley's newest boutique community garden and tea room." Agatha blinked. Boutique garden? Tea room? She glanced around. The WI leaned forward as one organism alerted by the words tea and prestige. Saskia continued, gesturing elegantly. "We offer raised beds, curated planting sessions, heritage seeds, and of course our artisan tea room. We're inviting WI members to take plots. In fact," her eyes flicked over the hall like a shopper evaluating produce, "we'll soon be featured in Cotswold Living. It would be wonderful to highlight some of Castley's unique personalities." Agatha stiffened. Was that a glance at her? It certainly felt like one, the sort reserved for decorative curiosities. "Unique personalities," Doris repeated brightly. "How lovely." Then Penny Dymock stood. Penny never merely stood. She rose like a headmistress addressing unruly pupils. Her grey hair formed a helmet of disapproval. "Gardening cannot be bought," she declared. "It requires patience, discipline, and understanding. Not," her eyes flicked at Agatha, "impulse purchasing." The hall tittered. That did it. "I," Agatha announced, "will take one of your beds, Miss Bell, and I shall grow something so magnificent that even she," she jabbed a finger toward Penny, "will choke on her envy." "Oh, Agatha," Penny said with a pitying smile, "one cannot choke on something non-existent." More laughter. Someone dropped a biscuit tin in mirth. Agatha sat down hard, cheeks flaming. She wished she had something to throw, preferably Penny. Just then her handbag vibrated. She dug inside. "What now?" she answered. "What?" Roy Silver's voice shrilled down the line. "Darling, you'll never believe this. I'm in a meeting," Agatha hissed. "What sort of meeting?" "A humiliation festival." "Sounds like your WI." "It is my WI." There was a delighted squeal. "Is it about gardening again?" "Oh, sweetie, don't," Agatha snapped. "Roy, if you don't stop laughing, I'll pot you." and hung up to the hall's unkind amusement. Saskia resumed her presentation. "Potted Gardener's plot has limited spaces," she said, "but we do prioritize keen participants. We're looking for people willing to be part of a visual success story." She clicked a slide showing Penny's prize-winning petunias, lush, vibrant, impossibly perfect. Saskia's gaze lingered on them with unsettling intensity. Agatha noticed. There was calculation there, a gleam of opportunity. Penny, preening under the attention, did not. Doris offered her diplomatic summary. "Well, this all sounds delightful. Perhaps we shall see Carsley flourish." Mabel Clegg muttered from the back. "Last time that woman ran a garden venture, Evesham Council nearly shut it for chemical muck-ups." A ripple of gossip spread like wildfire. Saskia's smile tightened. Agatha filed that under interesting and possibly scandalous. The talk concluded with polite applause. Chairs scraped again. Doris held court near the exit, accepting praise as though she had personally invented soil. Agatha marched out before anyone could speak to her. Pride rallied her spine. Vanity powered her stride. She would show them all. She would grow petunias so radiant that Penny Dymock would wither. The evening air bit pleasantly at her cheeks as she strode down the lane. Carsley cottage windows glowed softly. A dog barked somewhere. A bicycle rattled past. None of it soothed her. She rehearsed devastating retorts in her head. Impulse purchasing indeed. Bought, grown, or conjured. At least I attempt variety. Some people peek at headmistress and stay there. At home, Hodge greeted her with a dignified stretch, tail flicking as though assessing the level of drama she carried in. He sniffed her coat, decided she smelled of defeat, and padded away to sit where he could observe her more comfortably. Agatha slammed her handbag onto the kitchen table. "Well, you'd better learn to like flowers," she told Hodge, "because we are going to dominate that garden." He blinked slowly, unconvinced. She poured herself a modest glass of wine, strictly medicinal, and stared through the window. The night was crisp, the moon pale, the village quiet. Her humiliation still prickled, but something sharper stirred beneath it. Determination. Let Penny Dymock laugh. Let Doris preen. Let Saskia Bell parade her boutique nonsense. Agatha Raisin would become Carsley's gardening queen if it killed her, preferably not literally, though she suspected Penny might require some restraint. Hodge hopped onto a chair, kneaded the cushion, and curled up with regal indifference. "Fine," Agatha said. "Sleep. Tomorrow we begin." She switched off the light. In the darkness the humiliation still burned, but so did the resolve. It made a surprisingly cozy combination. Hodge stretched, yawned, and closed his eyes, as if blessing her ridiculous ambition with one tolerant sigh. The next morning, "Do try not to look lost, Agatha." Doris Simpson sniffed, clutching her handbag like a scepter as she swept past the entrance to Potted Gardener's plot. Agatha privately hoped she would fall into one of the muddy ruts outside the gate, but Doris sailed on, irritatingly sure-footed. The sign-up day had attracted half of Carsley. People milled about with the earnest expressions of those preparing to argue over compost. Agatha had dressed with care. Smart jacket, tailored trousers, and boots chosen not for practicality, but for their status as the only pair that made her legs look suitably long. If she was going to garden, she would at least look magnificent doing so. It looked exactly as it had last night, curated, smug, and built for photographs rather than dirt. Agatha approved of that part. If she was going to suffer publicly, she intended to do it in good lighting. Saskia Bell fluttered among the crowd with a clipboard, exuding the serene bustle of someone who had practiced appearing serene. "Welcome," she trilled. "Do come in, Mrs. Raisin. We're assigning beds based on individual potential." "Good," Agatha said, pushing forward. "I'll take one near the tea room, centre stage." Saskia blinked, then produced a brilliant smile. "Of course. Visibility is so important." Agatha was not sure whether she meant for gardening or publicity, but she accepted the compliment anyway. She would have a grand bed with terracotta pots flanking it like loyal soldiers. A familiar voice cut through the hum. "Morning, everyone. What a fine day for getting your hands dirty." Penny Dymock arrived, carrying a tray of petunia seedlings so robust they looked inflated. People swarmed her instantly. Agatha frowned. "Show off." Penny overheard. "No need to be bitter, Agatha. Some of us simply have a natural gift." "Yes," Agatha replied, "and some of us have natural dignity. though apparently it's optional. Several villagers choked on laughter. Mabel Clegg, the village's unofficial guardian of traditional allotment ways, barged through the crowd, shaking her head. "This is what's ruining proper gardening, all this boutique nonsense. Fairy lights and fancy names. Stealing decent soil, that's what it is." She glared pointedly at Saskia. Saskia clasped her hands. "We promote community involvement, Ms. Clegg." "You promote silliness," Mabel shot back. "Look at those pots, painted. Who paints pots?" Agatha considered saying people with taste, but thought better of it. A cheerful man in a branded jacket bounded into view, dragging a suitcase of products. "Trevor Beach at your service. Everything you need for perfect plants. Pellets, feed, weed killers, you name it. Modern solutions for modern gardens." Before Agatha could pretend familiarity, another voice sliced the air. "Poison," Gavin Trent declared, striding across the path. He had the earnest expression of a man who composted his own opinions. "You push poison, Trevor. This place is meant to be organic." Trevor laughed. "Oh, lighten up. A few slug pellets never killed anyone." "That is exactly what is wrong with you," Gavin snapped, cheeks darkening. "Chemicals ruin ecosystems." Trevor shrugged, unfazed. "Chemicals save plants. Take your pick." People whispered eagerly. The first public row of the morning had arrived early. Agatha watched with interest. Nothing made a village thrive like someone else's argument. Saskia intervened with fluttery panic. "Gentlemen, please. We mustn't frighten newcomers." "Too late," muttered Mabel. Trevor turned back to Agatha. "Now then, Mrs. Raisin, what's your gardening aim?" He produced a catalogue the size of a novella. Agatha lifted her chin. "Petunias. Big ones. Showy." "Splendid choice. You'll want slug pellets, nutrient feed, foliage spray, and this new miracle mix." He pushed bottles and boxes toward her. Agatha nodded as though she understood every word. She didn't, but she refused to look ignorant twice in 1 week. "I'll take the lot," Trevor beamed. "Excellent. You're my favourite kind of gardener. Decisive." Gavin muttered. "Dangerous is the word." The villagers, ever hungry for a narrative, began whispering about Gavin's extremism. "Wouldn't put it past him to sabotage a bed," someone murmured behind Agatha. She filed that away. Motives always sprouted early and castly. Saskia drifted over again, gaze sliding to Penny's seedlings with a proprietary gleam. "Your petunias are lovely, Penny. They'll make a beautiful centerpiece." Penny glowed. "My petunias always do." Saskia's smile strengthened, as though the idea of Penny's plants headlining a magazine spread had already taken root. Another mental note for Agatha. Saskia cared deeply about image. A voice drawled from behind her. "Well, this looks delightfully chaotic." Agatha turned. Charles Fraith approached, hands in pockets, wearing his usual expression of mild amusement. His convertible was parked diagonally, as if even his car felt charming. "What are you doing here?" Agatha asked. "Curiosity, and the chance of spectacle." He gave her a nod. "I hear you're becoming a gardening queen." "Mock me and die." "Perish the thought." He surveyed the beds. "Perhaps I'll sponsor a little competition. The Castley Cup for best display." Saskia nearly levitated. "Oh, Sir Charles, that would be wonderful. Such prestige." Agatha scowled. Charles always ruined things by making other people pleased. But the effect on the crowd was immediate. Whispers spread. Real competition had arrived. Agatha felt her spine straighten. If there was a trophy, Penny Dymock wouldn't get her smug hands on it without a fight. Trevor reappeared with another bottle. "Forgot this. It'll keep your foliage glossy." Agatha accepted it, though she already had no idea what half her purchases did. Trevor seemed to know everyone's chosen beds, their plant plans, and their chemical needs. He had a disturbingly good memory, she thought, a clue she would not appreciate until later. Saskia, meanwhile, guided Agatha to her designated bed. It was indeed central, facing the tea room, perfect for admiration or public failure. "These pots will frame it beautifully," Saskia said. "You have an eye for presentation." Agatha preened slightly. "Of course I do." Penny passed by, sniffing at the bare soil. "Shame it's empty." "Shame your personality is," Agatha snapped. Charles coughed to disguise laughter. The morning drifted into early afternoon, villagers claiming plots, arguing about manure, and sampling the tea room's questionable scones. Agatha purchased a pot of tea but spent most of the time studying other beds. Penny's seedlings had already drawn admirers. Saskia's attention lingered on them with increasing enthusiasm. Another clue, Agatha thought, though she didn't know of what yet. Eventually the crowd thinned. Agatha stood before her new plot with the air of a general surveying a battlefield. "It's going to be glorious," she said. "It will be something," Charles replied, still amused. She ignored him. She had made a dramatic announcement, endured Penny's condescension, and survived Gavin and Trevor's absurd argument. She would not fail now. Later, at home, Agatha spread her seed packets across the kitchen table. Hodge leapt up immediately, batting one with a casual swipe. "Don't start," Agatha warned, gathering them. "These are the tools of victory." Hodge sat, tail flicking with the contempt of a creature who knew petunias would never rival roast chicken. Agatha looked over her purchases, bottles, boxes, packets, feeling both triumphant and slightly alarmed. She had no idea what half of it meant, but appearances mattered, and tomorrow she would begin making her central plot the envy of Carsley. Hodge stretched, yawned, and nudged a packet off the table with a neat paw. It fluttered to the floor like a warning. Agatha sighed. "Fine, be a critic." She gathered everything with renewed determination. The path ahead was muddy, competitive, and full of lurking egos, but so was life, and she'd survived that. Hodge curled into a loaf, blinking serenely as if predicting trouble and enjoying it already. "Hodge, if you touch that bag again, I swear I'll compost you," Agatha barked, snatching a toppled packet off the kitchen floor. The cat, entirely unrepentant, pawed at a trail of spilled compost as though testing its suitability for a nap. Agatha glared. It was far too early for nonsense, especially feline nonsense. "I've got important work to do," she muttered, hauling several petunia trays toward the door. "These beauties cost a small fortune, so try, just try, not to sabotage me." Hodge blinked, then swept another pawful of soil across the tiles. "That's it," she snapped. "Out! I have gardening to accomplish, and you are not helping." Her temper simmered as she dragged the plants to the car. The morning had already conspired against her. Hodge had scattered compost everywhere. She'd stubbed her toe on the cupboard, and the answering machine had played a smug message from Roy, teasing her gardening ambitions. She was determined that nothing else would go wrong. Back at Potted Gardener's plot, the same faces hovered over the same beds, wearing the same earnest expressions. Agatha stepped through the gate with purposeful dignity, hugging her petunias like a fragile crown. By the time she reached her central plot, her mood had only slightly improved. The air held a faint chill, but sunshine brightened the tea-room windows and glinted off terracotta pots she'd purchased at extortionate cost. Perfect conditions for impressing the village. She knelt with measured grace, careful of her trousers, and arranged the petunias in a triumphant semicircle. The blooms were lush, their colours bold, and she felt a thrill of pride. No one would know she hadn't grown them from seed. In fact, she resolved absolutely no one would be allowed to know. Trevor Beach appeared as if summoned by retail opportunity. "Lovely choice, Mrs. Raisin. Premium stock, that is. Very forgiving, unless mistreated, of course." "Nothing here will be mistreated," Agatha retorted, patting the soil firmly. "I intend to win whatever silly cup Charles dreams up." Trevor chuckled. "Confidence, that's half the battle." He pointed with his boot. "You've got good soil, too. Should take well." Agatha nodded with solemn authority, despite not knowing whether soil could take anything. Penny Dymock drifted past, carrying a watering can like a scepter. My, she said sweetly. "A bold display. Very bought." Agatha's hands clenched. "Bought or grown, at least mine won't be dead this year." Penny smiled in a way that suggested she doubted it. By noon, Agatha needed tea and validation in equal measure. The tea room offered neither. The tea was weak, the cake suspiciously dry, and the other gardeners were too busy fussing over their own beds to compliment hers. Still, she persevered, sipping her lukewarm brew on the sunlit terrace. When she returned to her plot, she stopped dead. Her petunias drooped like despairing opera singers. Leaves curled inward, flowers sagged, and the once vibrant colours had become patchy and sickly. One plant had collapsed entirely, slumped on the soil like a fainting duchess. Agatha gasped. "No, absolutely not. You were perfect 20 minutes ago." Penny reappeared at the exact worst moment, gliding toward her with the relish of someone ready to supervise disaster. "Oh dear," she cooed. "That didn't last long." "They were fine," Agatha snapped. "You saw them." Penny inspected the bed as if grading homework. "Some people," she said, voice dripping with helpful malice, "shouldn't use chemicals they don't understand." Agatha choked. "I didn't," but Penny had already moved on, announcing condolences to anyone within earshot. Saskia hurried over, clipboard clutched to her chest. "Mrs. Raisin, what's happened? These looked marvelous earlier." "They were sabotaged," Agatha hissed. "Someone's jealous." Saskia peered helplessly. "Oh dear, this could give visitors the wrong impression." "Of my competence?" Agatha demanded. "Of the garden," Saskia corrected quickly. Gavin Trent approached, hands in pockets, face serious. He crouched near the soil, sniffing gently. "There's a chemical smell," he murmured. "Something sharp, and look." He pinched a few granules between finger and thumb. "Blue crystals. That's not compost." Trevor, who had lingered nearby, raised his hands defensively. "Don't look at me. My pellets don't do that if used correctly." Agatha rounded on him. "Meaning what?" Trevor coughed. User error is common. Not implying anything, of course." Agatha's fury ignited. "Are you calling me incompetent?" "No, certainly not. Just, well, chemicals can confuse people." Saskia fluttered anxiously. "We can't have chemicals killing plants before our magazine feature." Gavin shot Trevor a glare. "You've been handing out samples like sweets. Who knows what's in them?" Trevor bristled. "Natural ingredients, mostly. Anyway, hardly my fault if someone meddled." Agatha's humiliation deepened when Doris Simpson strolled by, basket in hand. She paused, surveying the carnage. "Oh dear," Doris sighed. "One can't buy a green thumb any more than one can buy taste." Agatha growled. If murder had been legal, she would have committed it joyfully. Villagers gathered, drawn by the scent of public misfortune. Whispers drifted. "Saw Mabel skulking round this morning," someone said. "She hates the whole place." Another muttered, "Didn't Penny once sabotage chrysanthemums at a county show?" The gossip swirled eagerly. Agatha straightened, face blazing. "Someone has poisoned my petunias," she announced, loud enough for her voice to ricochet off every raised bed. "And I will find out who." A few gardeners froze mid-plant. Penny paused dramatically. Gavin nodded approvingly as if sabotage confirmed his worldview. Trevor swallowed hard. Saskia looked faintly horrified. "Mrs. Raisin, please, let's not frighten everyone." "I'm not frightening anyone," Agatha said. "I'm stating facts." Mabel Clegg marched over, scowl ready. "What's all this fuss? Plants die. Happens every day." "Mine don't die in 20 minutes, Agatha snapped. Mabel sniffed. "Maybe they should." Agatha added Mabel to her mental suspect list. Charles appeared at her side, hands in pockets, expression maddeningly serene. "Good heavens," he said. "Your plot looks like a battlefield." "Someone sabotaged me," Agatha insisted. Charles squatted beside the nearest ruined plant. "It's wilted, yes, but could be anything. Shock, overwatering, poor soil." "Not poor soil," Gavin cut in. "Look at the crystals." Charles looked. "Ah." Agatha folded her arms triumphantly. "See?" Charles stood. "Well, my dear, you've certainly created excitement. Half the village is watching." The crowd, indeed, seemed riveted. Nothing animated Carsley like Agatha's misfortune. Penny sauntered past again, voice honeyed. "I do hope you recover, Agatha. Gardening requires resilience." "Get out of my sight," Agatha snarled. Bill Wong, appearing late and looking mildly panicked, tried to restore order. "Everyone calm down. It's just a few plants." "To you, maybe," Agatha shot back. "This is public humiliation." Bill sighed. "Let's gather facts before we blame anyone." But facts were already gathering. Gavin scraped more crystals from the soil. "This is concentrated, far too strong for casual use." Trevor flushed. "Could be anyone's. Plenty of people use slug pellets." Agatha glared at him. "And you sell them." "Yes, but suspicious," she declared. Trevor opened and closed his mouth, defeated. Saskia wrung her hands. "Please, let's not accuse people. This garden must appear harmonious." "It will appear poisoned if this keeps happening," Agatha snapped. "And I won't stand for it." She jabbed a finger at her ruined bed, voice ringing across the rows. "Someone is trying to sabotage me, but they've forgotten something." Charles murmured, only one thing?" Agatha ignored him. "I will not be beaten, and when I discover who did this, the entire village will know." The crowd tensed, delighted. Later at home, Agatha marched into her kitchen, still vibrating with indignation. Hodge lounged on the table, tail wrapped around his paws, watching her with faint amusement. "Well," she said, dropping her gardening gloves with dramatic flair, "the war has begun." Hodge stretched lazily, as if he had expected nothing less. The following day, at the official opening fete, Doris Simpson intercepted her near the entrance, as if she'd been waiting for the chance. "I'm not triumphant," Agatha retorted. "I'm righteously indignant, entirely different." Doris sniffed. "If you say so." The official opening fete had transformed the garden into something resembling a village fair run by people who owned too many scarves. Bunting fluttered, children darted between raised beds, and the WI stall groaned under Victoria sponges and slightly dry lemon drizzle. Agatha arrived in her best country ensemble, navy coat, silk scarf, and boots, tall enough to suggest competence. She wanted the world to know her petunias had been murdered, and she was prepared to inform anyone within range. She made a slow, purposeful circuit, pausing to greet people with the gravity of someone attending a diplomatic summit. "Sabotage," she murmured to a startled vicar. "Chemical warfare," she told two WI ladies. "An assassination of blooms," she explained to a confused toddler. The toddler blinked. The mother hurried him away. Roy Silver appeared in a flurry of enthusiasm, waving a camera. "Darling, hold still. Pretend you're surveying your horticultural kingdom." "I don't have a kingdom," Agatha said. "You will once I pitch this feature. From PR Dragon to Petunia Queen. It practically writes itself." Agatha preened despite herself. "Well, if it helps expose the coward who killed my plants." Roy grinned. "And who poisoned your flair for subtlety." "Get on with it," she snapped, though not unkindly. Saskia Bell floated onto the small platform set up near the tea-room door, tapping a microphone that squeaked ominously. "Welcome, everyone. Today marks the official opening of Potted Gardener's Plot. Our mission is to celebrate community, beauty, and mindful planting." Mabel Clegg muttered, "And overpriced compost." Saskia pressed on. "Please gather for the ribbon-cutting ceremony." Penny Dimmock stepped forward, wearing a blazer that looked ironed onto her. She carried the self-assurance of someone who had won too many gardening rosettes and not enough personality prizes. Saskia handed her the scissors with ritual solemnity. "Penny Dimmock," Saskia said, "winner of countless regional awards, will present our golden petunia rosette for best early display." Agatha muttered, "Of course you will." Charles Fraith, lounging nearby, murmured, "One must admire consistency." Agatha elbowed him lightly. Penny made a speech that lasted an age, something about standards, dedication, effort, and how gardening was not for casual dabblers. That was followed by an extraordinary moment where she awarded the golden petunia to herself. A ripple of eye rolls travelled through the crowd. Trevor Beach hovered at the refreshments table, topping up pitchers of elderflower fizz and herbal tisanes. "Topping up never stops," he said cheerfully to anyone who passed. His attempts at joviality clashed with Gavin Trent's stormy presence at the edge of the gathering. Gavin kept glaring at any bottle near the compost heap, as though preparing to stage a protest. Roy was busy snapping photos. "Penny, hold the rosette nearer your face." "No, not that near. Your pupils look wild." Penny pursed her lips. "This is amateurish." Roy beamed. "Thank you." Agatha drifted closer to Penny's display, longing to deflate her. Instead, she caught a faint scent drifting from Penny's mug sitting on a bench. Bitter, sharp, wrong. Not herbal, not pleasant. Something that made her nose wrinkle. "What is she drinking?" Agatha murmured. "Her own special tisane," Saskia said, passing by. "She brewed it in the tea-room kitchen. Claims it's mixed from herbs she grows herself." "Madness," Agatha said. "People shouldn't grow ingredients they can't identify." Saskia laughed politely, clearly not listening. Penny finally sat, exhausted by her own speech. She lifted her mug, sipped, then frowned faintly. "Strange," she murmured. She took another sip. Moments later, she pressed a hand to her chest. Her face paled beneath its powdered armour. Agatha watched as Penny's eyes widened. She swayed, tried to speak, and collapsed against the bench with a strangled gasp. Someone screamed. A glass shattered. The crowd lurched into chaos. Bill Wong, who had only come for a quiet cup of tea and a break from paperwork, sprang forward. "Stand back! Give her air! Call an ambulance!" He knelt, checking her pulse, his calmness startling in the frenzy. Agatha hovered anxiously. "Bill, is it—" "Not now, Agatha." His voice was firm but kind. Saskia began shaking, her clipboard clutched to her chest. "This can't be happening. Not today. Not here." Trevor stood frozen, lemonade jug in hand. "Good Lord," he whispered. "She was fine earlier." Gavin looked furious and terrified. "Chemicals," he muttered. "I warned everyone." Paramedics arrived quickly, weaving through overturned chairs and horrified murmurs. They stabilized Penny, lifted her onto a stretcher, and hurried her away. She never regained consciousness, and she died later that evening in hospital. The tea-room door hung open, the scent of herbs drifting faintly. Bill exhaled, shoulders heavy. "I'll follow the ambulance," he said quietly to Agatha. "Don't stir anything." "Me?" Agatha asked, offended. "Yes, you." He left at once. The fate deflated like a punctured balloon. People gathered in tense clusters, whispering that Penny had been poisoned, that the tisane tasted odd, that she had argued violently with Gavin earlier, that Saskia looked panicked enough to faint herself. Rumours bloomed faster than weeds in spring. Agatha returned to Penny's seat, examining the abandoned mug. She lifted it to her nose. The bitter scent was unmistakable now. Nothing like the mild herbal blend served earlier. Something harsher and dangerous. A foxglove stalk swayed near Penny's bed, its purple bells brushing the soil. Agatha frowned. "That wasn't here before," she muttered. She glanced around, noting how it seemed oddly out of place among the neatly kept petunias. A memory pricked. Foxglove meant digitalis, and digitalis meant danger. She was no botanist, but she had lived long enough to recognize trouble when planted directly beside it. Charles joined her. "Penny collapsed?" "Yes," Agatha said, "and she nearly died in my earshot. I imagine the village will be intolerable for days." "Charles," she hissed, "this is serious." "Of course, but you must admit, your gardening drama escalated quickly." She narrowed her eyes. "Your timing is atrocious." A WI member hurried past, whispering, "Someone said the weed killer bottle's missing from the shed." Another replied, "Well, Gavin practically shouted murder at Penny earlier." "I heard Saskia's business is in trouble," added a third. Agatha absorbed each rumour with the greed of someone starving for clarity. Trevor claimed innocence too readily. Gavin looked angry enough to torch the entire garden. Saskia seemed desperate to hide any flaw from potential magazine photographers. And now, a bottle of concentrated weed killer was missing. She marched to the communal shed. The door hung open, the shelves tidily arranged except for a glaring gap where a large bottle should have sat. She crouched, scanning the floor. Nothing spilled, nothing obviously disturbed, but the absence itself was loud. Trevor wandered over, wringing his hands. "Horrible business, Mrs. Raisin." "You were at the refreshments table the entire time?" "Of course, topping up drinks, making sure everyone stayed hydrated." Agatha eyed him. "You know what everyone uses, what everyone buys, even which beds they have." Trevor shifted. "That's my job, really." "Convenient," she said. He flushed. "I had nothing to do with this, I swear it." Gavin approached, voice trembling with anger. "Penny was poisoning the soil. I told her she'd regret it." "That's hardly a defense," Agatha snapped. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. "I didn't hurt her." "Someone did," Agatha said. By late afternoon, the fate limped on without enthusiasm. The bunting sagged, the music faltered. People left early, subdued and glancing nervously at the tea-room door as though expecting another collapse. Agatha remained, standing among the raised beds. The fading light softened the garden's edges, but it sharpened the knot in her chest. This wasn't a simple heart attack. Penny had been poisoned. Agatha knew it as surely as she knew Doris would find a way to blame her. She turned slowly, surveying the plots, the tea-room, the shed, the trampled lawn. A story was unfolding, and she could almost hear her own dramatic narration building. Agatha Raisin and the poisoned Petunia. It had a certain ring, a tragic touch, and scandal enough for an entire series of WI meetings. She squared her shoulders. Someone here had committed murder, and if the police didn't uncover who, she certainly would. At home later, Hodge sat by the kettle, flicking his tail with pointed disinterest. Agatha sighed, filling it. "Well, darling, things have taken a turn." Hodge blinked, then stretched, unimpressed but companionable. Agatha poured herself tea, the kitchen settling into quiet. The evening's chaos faded, replaced by a smouldering determination. Someone had turned a village fete into a crime scene, and she, Agatha Raisin, would not rest until the truth was unearthed. Hodge poured a stray leaf from her coat, as though tiding her for battle. The next day, Penny Dymock always had a dramatic streak, Agatha declared, sweeping into the Red Lion as though delivering a royal bulletin. Even her collapse was theatrical. Mabel Clegg replied from the bar, "People don't fake dying, Agatha." "You haven't met some of my clients," Agatha snapped, marching to her usual table. It was barely midday, and already the pub hummed with more gossip than lunch trade. Villagers clustered in tight groups, whispering fervently. Penny's collapse at the fete had electrified Carsley. No one could resist speculating. The air smelled of chips, disinfectant, and scandal. Agatha sat with a gin and tonic. "Medicinal," she told the barman, and began arranging herself into the position of centre commentator. "Poisoned," she said loudly. "No question." Several heads turned. Exactly what she wanted. Roy Silver, having dashed from London upon hearing the news, slid into the seat opposite her. "Darling, you look radiant on outrage alone. Start from the top. Was there blood?" "Roy, this is Carsley, not the Tower of London." "So, minimal blood?" "None. Poison." Roy nodded thoughtfully. "Chic." Bill Wong arrived moments later, looking exhausted and already regretting entering the pub. He stopped at their table with the expression of a man preparing to treat two unruly children. "Agatha, can you please stop telling everyone Penny was poisoned?" "I'm not telling everyone. I'm just telling anyone who'll listen." "That's everyone," Bill sighed. He sat, lowering his voice. "Look, the hospital confirmed digitoxin poisoning. That's foxglove, digitalis. Not weed killer. Not slug pellets. Foxglove." Agatha's eyebrows shot up triumphantly. "Ha! I knew it was murder." "No," Bill said quickly, "not necessarily murder. Foxglove grows everywhere. Penny used herbs from her garden. It could be an accident." Agatha scoffed. Penny was many things, tedious, smug, superior, but careless? Never. Mrs. Bloxby arrived at the table like a soft breeze. "Bill is right," she said gently. "People do make mistakes." "Not Penny," Agatha insisted. "She labelled everything. She probably labelled her labels." Bill tapped the table. "Funny you say that. Her kitchen had rows of jars, all labelled except for one. Mismatched jar, smudged writing. We've taken it for testing." Agatha leaned in. "A clue?" Bill straightened. "Not a clue. A detail." But Agatha was already assembling theories. Penny's herb jar tampered with. Foxglove near her bed. A bitter smell in her tisane. Sabotage felt like the only logical explanation, and if logic leaned toward drama, Agatha welcomed it. Roy ordered chips. "Darling, list your suspects. Every great detective needs their roster." Agatha considered. "Gavin Trent. He loathes chemicals and argued with Penny loudly about poisoning the soil. Perfect motive for a dramatic demonstration." Mrs. Bloxby shook her head. "Gavin's temper is sharp, but his heart is soft." "We don't arrest hearts," Agatha said. "We arrest motives." She ticked another name on her mental list. Trevor Beach. He deals in dangerous products, knows exactly what could kill someone and how quickly, and he was topping up drinks all afternoon. Roy gasped. "Poisoned by hospitality. Deliciously wicked." Mrs. Bloxby frowned. "I hope you're not enjoying this, Agatha." "Of course not," Agatha lied. She continued. "And Saskia, she's sunk everything into that garden. A death could ruin her business. Penny's collapse was catastrophic for her reputation." Mrs. Bloxby replied softly. "But why would she kill Penny at her own opening?" "To control the scandal," Agatha said. "People do very silly things under pressure." Bill rubbed his forehead. "Agatha, please don't go accusing people. Let us handle this." "You? Handle this?" she scoffed. "Bill, I say this with love, but if I waited for police efficiency, the murderer would have grandchildren before you solved it." Roy clapped. "Brutal. Accurate." Bill sighed again. "Fine, but don't interfere." Agatha ignored him. The pub grew louder with each new rumour. A WI member leaned in conspiratorially. "Did you hear? Penny once downgraded Saskia's friend in that London gardening feature. Ruined her chances at a book deal." Another chimed in, "Serves Penny right. Always so high and mighty." Mabel Clegg added darkly, "Penny deserved a taste of her own medicine." Agatha spun toward her. "What does that mean?" "Nothing," Mabel snapped. "Just a saying," but her scowl lingered. Roy nudged Agatha. "Darling, that sounded very murdery." Agatha nodded. "Oh yes, she's on the list." Bill stood. "I have to get back. Please, all of you, don't stir gossip." Agatha sipped her drink. "Gossip stirs itself." Bill left, muttering something about headaches. Mrs. Bloxby placed a gentle hand on Agatha's wrist. "Please be careful. This is tragic, not an opportunity for triumph." Agatha bristled, then softened. "I know, but someone poisoned her, right under our noses." The vicar's wife gave a small, sad smile. "Sometimes things are not as deliberate as they seem." "But sometimes they are," Agatha said firmly. Roy returned with ketchup packets and a wicked grin. "So when do we interrogate Trevor? You can threaten him with gardening advice. That should terrify him." "Roy, this is serious," Agatha snapped. "But yes, soon." As they ate, Agatha replayed the fate in her mind. Penny's smug speech, her self-awarded rosette, the mug on the bench, the bitter smell, Trevor hovering by drinks, Gavin glowering at chemicals, Saskia frantically trying to keep everything perfect, the missing weed-killer bottle, and that foxglove stalk swaying beside Penny's bed. Foxglove, digitalis, deliberate. Agatha set down her glass with renewed purpose. Walking home, Agatha sorted her suspects like laundry: irritating, suspicious, dangerous, or simply stupid. Many villagers fit into several categories. The afternoon sun filtered through hedgerows, but she hardly noticed. She was thinking like a detective again, and it thrilled her. She replayed Bill's key detail, the mismatched jar in Penny's kitchen. That jar meant someone tampered with her herbs or swapped them. Penny was meticulous. If a jar was out of place, someone else had placed it. Another memory struck her sharply. Trevor in the tea-room kitchen earlier, chatting to volunteers and fiddling with mugs. She had assumed he was refilling jugs, but now she wondered, had he slipped into the kitchen to drop something in Penny's mix, or remove something? "Too convenient," she muttered. Roy buzzed beside her like a wasp in designer sunglasses. "Darling, if Trevor did it, do we call the police or blackmail him into gardening lessons?" "This is murder, Roy." "Yes, but you can still be strategic." Agatha stopped walking. "Bill won't let me help properly. He keeps treating me like an interfering busybody." Roy raised an eyebrow. "Your point?" "I'm not an interfering busybody. I'm an asset." "A glamorous one," Roy added. "Exactly." She resumed walking with new energy. "If Bill won't use me officially, I'll solve the case myself, before him. Then I'll present him with the murderer like a cat dropping a mouse at someone's feet." Roy laughed so loudly a passing cyclist nearly fell off. "Oh, that image is going to stay with me." "Good," Agatha said, "because it's my plan." When she reached her cottage, she swung open the door dramatically, as though expecting applause. Hodge lay on the armchair, curled like a disinterested cushion. He blinked one eye, then the other. "Well," she announced, "I am now officially ahead of the police." Hodge stretched slowly, unimpressed. Agatha poured tea, safer than gin in her current state, and sat beside him. "Penny's poisoning is tangled with the Petunia sabotage. Same type of malice. Someone wants chaos." Hodge shifted just enough to signal that chaos was inevitable whenever Agatha was involved. She stroked his fur absently. "I'll find who did it. And when I do, Bill will have no choice but to admit I was right." Hodge yawned, then tucked his paws neatly beneath him. The kettle sighed behind her, the cottage settling into evening peace. Outside, gossip churned across Castley like weather, but inside Agatha's living room, a quiet certainty took root. She would solve this, and she fully intended to enjoy proving Bill wrong. "Charles, stop dawdling. We're investigating murder, not browsing antiques," Agatha snapped as they reached the gate of Potted Gardener's plot. "My dear, you bribed me with lunch, not urgency," Charles replied, pocketing his keys with leisurely charm. It was a bright, blustery afternoon, the sort that whipped scarves dramatically, which Agatha appreciated because it lent her stride heroic flair. She strode between the beds, eyes sharp, posture stiff with importance. Charles followed with mild amusement, hands in pockets, wearing the expression of a man who found homicide investigations excellent exercise. Agatha began her rounds with a thin veneer of casual friendliness. "Lovely day for gardening," she called to a woman who immediately looked nervous. Charles murmured, "Terrifying. They think you're here to judge their basil." Agatha ignored him. She had suspects to intimidate. Her first target was Gavin Trent, hunched over his organic compost heap like a monk guarding relics. His hair whipped in the wind. His expression remained tortured. "Gavin," Agatha began, "my condolences on your soil situation." Gavin looked up, eyes bleak. "Penny ruined everything. She wanted to bring in a sponsor Trevor found. Chemical products everywhere. It would have destroyed the entire organic project." Agatha tilted her head. "So you argued?" "Of course I argued. She threatened to push me out, said I was holding the project back." Charles arched a brow. "And now she's dead." Gavin flinched. "That doesn't solve anything. She's left me in debt, not victory." Agatha catalogued the peculiar phrasing. "Debt, you said?" "Yes," Gavin replied. "Financial mess. She handled negotiations. Now it's a disaster." Agatha stored the details suspiciously, though Charles whispered, "A bit dramatic even for a murderer." She shot him a look. Next they found Saskia Bell near the tea room, rearranging fairy lights with the reverence of someone clinging to aesthetics for sanity. Her face looked drawn, her smile thinner than the wire she was untangling. "Saskia," Agatha said, "how are things?" Saskia deflated slightly. "Awful. Deposits withdrawn, members cancelling, a journalist phoning this morning asking whether I'm running a toxic death trap." Charles winced sympathetically. Agatha pounced. "A journalist? Who?" "I didn't catch the name. They were very abrupt." Agatha's imagination supplied tabloids screaming "Killer Kale" at Cotswold Garden. Saskia continued, "This place was supposed to save me. Now it may ruin me." She blinked hard. "And Trevor keeps talking about offering discounts. Discounts, as though slashing prices restores trust." Agatha fixed her with a narrow stare. "Speaking of Trevor, who has shed keys." Saskia hesitated. "Mostly me and Gavin, and Trevor for deliveries." "Deliveries at odd hours," Agatha said. "Well, sometimes he comes early, or late, or both." Agatha's eyes glittered. "Interesting." Charles murmured, "You sound like Poirot after skipping breakfast." Feeling triumphant, Agatha dragged Charles toward Mabel Clegg's patch. Mabel's roses, smug, glossy, survivable under nuclear blast, ruffled in the wind while their owner pruned them with alarming precision. "Mabel," Agatha said with false warmth. Mabel didn't look up. "If you're here to blame me, don't bother. I curse people, not kill them." Agatha blinked. "And who said anything about killing?" "You carry suspicion like perfume," Mabel replied dryly. "Besides, Penny humiliated me at the county show. I wouldn't give her the satisfaction of haunting me." Charles whispered, "Charming village." Agatha persisted. "Did you see anything suspicious?" Mabel snorted. "Everyone here is suspicious. Gavin's a zealot. Trevor's too cheerful. Saskia's too desperate. And you?" "Yes?" Agatha demanded. "Too nosy." Agatha bristled. Mabel resumed pruning with lethal serenity. Trevor Beach announced himself with a booming, "Free samples! Keep your gardens thriving." He wheeled a crate toward them, face bright with salesman confidence. "Trevor," Agatha said sharply, "you're distributing products after a poisoning." He faltered only slightly. "Confidence-building exercise, tonic for the soul, and foxglove, you know, nature's original heart medicine." Agatha stared. "A woman dies from digitalis, and you make foxglove jokes." Trevor blushed. "Poor taste. Very poor. My apologies." Charles picked up one of the sample tubs, turning it over. "What's this residue?" Trevor leaned closer. "Where?" "Here," Charles said, brushing a thumb along the rim. Faint blue powder streaked the plastic. Agatha's spine tingled. It matched the crystals found in her destroyed petunias. Trevor swallowed. "Probably transfer from stock. The warehouse can get messy." "Messy enough to kill flowers? Or people?" Agatha asked lightly. Trevor's voice cracked. "I didn't kill anyone." Saskia called Trevor away to help hang bunting salvaged from the Fate. As he hustled off, Agatha whispered, "That man is hiding something." Charles replied, "Or he's a buffoon coated in fertilizer dust." "Buffoons kill plenty," Agatha insisted. They wandered to Penny's former plot. The bed sat in neat order, except for one oddity. A foxglove stalk still swayed beside the border. Agatha knelt, fingers grazing the soil. "Only this bed has foxglove near harvest herbs." Charles crouched. "Coincidence?" "No," Agatha snapped. "Penny labelled everything. She would never plant something this dangerous beside her tea leaves." Charles looked thoughtful. "Someone planted it?" "Or transplanted," Agatha said. "Unless Penny suddenly grew reckless, which she didn't." Agatha stood, scanning the rows. Trevor's residue, his keys, his jokes, Gavin's anger, debt, temper, Saskia's panic, financial ruin, journalist call, Mabel's curses and Rose's routine. Too many motives, too many opportunities. Charles smiled. "You adore this." She drew herself up. "I am merely committed to truth." "You glow when lying," he said. She smacked his arm. They drifted toward the compost pile again, where Gavin sorted wilting stems with aggressive intensity. "Gavin," Agatha said abruptly, "did Penny mention any herbal experiments?" He looked confused. She liked blends, but she was careful. Terrifyingly careful. Charles folded his arms. "Meaning?" She measured leaves like a chemist. She'd never have mixed foxglove by accident. Agatha exchanged a glance with Charles. "Deliberate," she whispered. A shout rang across the plot. Saskia stood by the tea-room door, clutching the phone. Her face had drained of colour. "Everything all right?" Agatha called. Saskia shut the office door quickly. "Fine. Just fine." Agatha's suspicion surged. "Editor giving her trouble," she murmured. Charles raised an eyebrow. "You heard the call?" "No, but you didn't see her face." "True," he said. "It resembled curdled milk." Trevor reappeared moments later, passing out more cheerful samples. "Free for all. Restore your garden's glory." Agatha snatched a tub, inspecting the rim again. Blue speckles. A match. She cornered him behind a shed. "Trevor, where do these tubs come from?" "Warehouse in Mercester," he answered, startled. "Why?" "Because they look contaminated. It's fertilizer dust. Perfectly harmless." Agatha leaned close. "Then why did it kill my petunias?" Trevor stammered. "User error?" She bared her teeth. "Say that again." He fled. Charles chuckled softly. "You terrify the poor man." "He terrifies me more," she replied. "Buffoons with chemicals are lethal." They walked the length of the garden again. The wind tugged Agatha's scarf, making her look rather victorious, which she enjoyed. She questioned 2 more gardeners. One saw Gavin near the herb beds late at night. Another heard Saskia crying behind the shed after Penny's collapse. Neither lead clarified anything. Both expanded Agatha's drama delightfully. After nearly 2 hours, even Agatha paused to collect her thoughts. "Right," she said. "Trevor is suspicious. Keys, chemicals, residues, jokes. Gavin is volatile, threatened by Penny, financially ruined. Saskia is desperate, business on the brink, journalists sniffing. Mabel is resentful but harmless, probably." Charles nodded thoughtfully. "Trevor feels the likely suspect, but he's bumbling enough to be innocent by sheer stupidity." Agatha scowled. "I refuse to believe stupidity is a defence." "Tell that to Parliament," Charles murmured. She marched toward the gate. "We regroup, strategize, and gather more evidence." "We?" Charles asked. "Yes, we. Murder requires a team effort." "I thought murder required—" "Don't be pedantic," she snapped. Charles held the gate for her. "Well, my dear, you've interrogated half the village and terrified the other half. Progress?" "Results," Agatha corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes," she said, "but not one I can currently articulate." Back home, Agatha hung her coat with dramatic flourish. Hodge lounged atop the kitchen table, one paw draped elegantly over a seed packet. "Excuse me," she said, nudging him aside. "Detective returning." Hodge blinked disdainfully. Agatha boiled the kettle, thoughts racing. Clues dangled before her like ribbons. Trevor's residue, Gavin's despair, Saskia's panic, Mabel's grievance, that solitary foxglove stalk. A pattern hovered just out of reach. She sat beside Hodge, stroking his fur. Trevor might be guilty, or he might be an idiot, or both. Hodge stretched luxuriously, exposing his belly, pure manipulation. Agatha sighed. Fine, you're my only reliable colleague. The kettle clicked off, filling the quiet cottage with a comforting hum. Agatha poured her tea, mind sharpening again. Tomorrow, she said, I corner Trevor properly, and if he dodges questions again, I'll shake the truth out of him. Hodge tucked his paws, blinking with patient superiority. Agatha smiled faintly. Yes, I know. You'd solve it faster. He yawned, sealing the argument. Roy, stop adjusting your hair. We're interrogating someone, not filming a shampoo advert, Agatha snapped as they stepped into Evesham's High Street. Roy tutted. Darling, image is everything, especially when discussing murder over coffee. It was a soft, overcast afternoon, the kind that made shop windows glow warmly and pedestrians move with leisurely purpose. Agatha had dragged Roy out on the flimsy excuse of shopping, but he had known instantly that she was on an information hunt. Nothing about Agatha's stride said browsing. It said pursuit. Mrs. Bloxby had planted the seed earlier that morning with a gentle comment. Penny had a formidable teaching career, you know. Quite influential. In Mrs. Bloxby's vocabulary, influential often meant terrifying. Agatha had taken the hint. If Penny's past held skeletons, Agatha wanted them identified, catalogued, and preferably gossip-worthy. They located the boutique easily, a small, stylish shop selling clothes too expensive to look that plain. Behind the counter stood a woman in her 30s with a sharp bob, bright eyes, and the mildly startled expression of someone not used to seeing Agatha Raisin barrel through the door. "Excuse me," Agatha said briskly. "Were you once a pupil of Penny Dymock?" The woman blinked. "Goodness, yes, ages ago." Roy leaned over the counter charmingly. "We're doing a community remembrance piece." Agatha elbowed him. "We're investigating." The woman smiled nervously. "Investigating what?" "Her death," Agatha said bluntly. "We need details." They relocated to a nearby cafe, where the woman, introducing herself as Jennifer, ordered a mocha and immediately launched into memory. Penny was strict, terrifying, always right, always smug about being right, even when she wasn't. Agatha nodded. "That sounds like her." Jennifer continued. "There was an incident once, a cookery demonstration. I was about 14. Penny insisted we use herbs from the school garden. She said it taught respect for nature." Roy sighed dramatically. "Nature has no respect for us, dear." Jennifer smiled faintly, then sobered. A girl collapsed, turned pale and fainted. The whole class panicked. Penny claimed she was pretending to get attention, but the girl's parents threatened legal action. Agatha leaned forward. "Why?" "They said Penny didn't supervise the herbs properly. There was talk of poison plants. It became a minor scandal, though you'd never hear Penny admit it." Agatha felt her pulse quicken. "Do you remember what herbs were involved?" Jennifer frowned. "I mostly remember Penny yelling, but my mother, she kept clippings from the school newsletter. She said Penny was furious that anyone dared question her judgment." Agatha fixed her with a keen stare. "And did Penny know foxglove was dangerous?" Jennifer gave a short laugh. "She lectured us constantly that any fool should know foxglove leaves are poisonous. So, yes." Agatha sat back, triumphant. "Then she certainly wouldn't have mixed foxglove into her tisane by accident last week." Roy patted her hand. "Darling, please try to pretend you're shocked by murder, not delighted by deductive opportunities." Jennifer hesitated. "There's something else. My mother kept a folder of invoices from the school garden suppliers. They'd worked with a man who presented himself as some sort of horticultural fix-all, always cheerful, always selling something." Agatha's eyes narrowed. "Trevor Beach?" "Yes," Jennifer said. "That was the name. He supplied materials when Penny ran the garden." Agatha's mind buzzed. Trevor had known Penny for decades, knew her habits, knew her precision, knew her weaknesses. Jennifer fetched the dusty folder from the back of her boutique. Her mother had used it to prop up a wonky table. The invoices were faded but legible. Trevor's company name appeared on nearly all of them. Agatha traced a finger over the letters. "Long-standing access, long-standing familiarity." Roy whispered. "Long-standing motive. Delicious." Agatha tucked the invoice photocopies into her bag. Jennifer, this has been invaluable. Jennifer shrugged. Penny made enemies easily, but she also made people depend on her. It was complicated. Agatha softened. Thank you. Outside, Roy linked arms with her. Darling, you realize what we've discovered? A perfect headline. From poisoned schoolroom to poisoned Petunia. Agatha recoiled. Don't you dare pitch that. But it's fabulous. It's appalling, she said, though a small, traitorous part of her privately agreed the title was catchy. They walked past the twilight-lit shop fronts, Agatha's mind racing. A school scandal. A poisoned herb incident. Penny's arrogant dismissal. Trevor's ancient connection. It all hinted at motive, yet it felt too theatrical, too historical. Revenge left to simmer for decades. Possible, but rarely tidy. Roy broke her concentration. So what now? You confront Trevor and demand he confess to poisoning everyone from 1984 to last week? Don't be ridiculous, Agatha snapped. I'll ask cleverly, firmly, perhaps loudly. Roy snickered. So, demand he confesses. Agatha ignored him. They passed a charity shop window filled with chipped china and threadbare cardigans. Agatha slowed, watching the glass reflect the high street behind her. Do you know what bothers me? Your scarf sitting at a tragic angle, Roy offered. Roy. Fine. What bothers you? This scandal doesn't feel like the root. It's old, dusty. The past irritates people, but money ruins them. Roy blinked. Meaning? Meaning Penny's recent finances matter more. Gavin said she left him in debt. Saskia said deposits were being withdrawn. Trevor said business was booming, conveniently. Someone around that plot was desperate. Roy tilted his head. You don't think this was revenge for the schoolgirl incident? Possibly a red herring, Agatha murmured, and I refuse to chase herrings unless they're marinated and on toast. They reached the car park where Agatha's small hatchback waited sullenly. Roy put a hand on her sleeve. Darling, you look unusually thoughtful. Should I be alarmed? Agatha exhaled slowly. I'm thinking I may have let the scent of an old scandal distract me. Penny's murder feels rooted in something fresher, closer, something that began at the plot, not 30 years ago. But Trevor, knowing Penny for decades, gives him opportunity, Agatha finished, but motive, unsure. Roy leaned against the passenger door. Could Penny have threatened him recently? Possibly, Agatha admitted. Trevor's business relies on reputation. If Penny caught him cutting corners or mixing dangerous stock, Roy gasped theatrically. Imagine, the fertilizer fraudster. Agatha rolled her eyes. Please don't start naming the suspects. They got in the car. Agatha drove with uncharacteristic steadiness, her mind churning through each detail. Penny's precision in labelling herbs, her certainty about foxglove danger, the mismatched jar in her kitchen, Trevor's residue-covered tubs, Saskia's fraying nerves, Gavin's despairing finances, Mabel's scowls. Everyone has a motive, Agatha muttered. Roy added, except you, darling, unless she insulted your gardening again. She did, frequently, Roy grinned. Then you join the list. Shut up. When they returned to Carsley, the village had entered its quiet evening phase, windows glowing buttery gold, a dog barking half-heartedly at nothing, someone burning toast 2 doors down. Agatha found the calm oddly sinister, as though the murderer might be trimming hedges right now, humming contentedly. Inside her cottage, Hodge lifted his head from the sofa cushion as though mildly displeased she'd returned. Agatha dropped her bag and stroked him. You wouldn't believe the day I've had. Hodge blinked once, twice, then resumed ignoring her. Agatha boiled water, the kettle humming companionably. She replayed Jennifer's words. Any fool ought to know foxglove is dangerous. Penny had said that. Penny was aware. Penny was cautious. Penny did not make herb mistakes. The jar in Penny's kitchen haunted her. It felt planted, not misplaced. Roy drifted into the kitchen behind her, running a hand along the counter. Darling, your brain is whirring louder than the kettle. I'm missing something, Agatha muttered. Something obvious. Roy smirked. Like what herb a murderer uses. Like why Penny was killed now, Agatha said. Not in her schoolroom years, not over the scandal, but now, right at the plot. Roy sat on a stool. Maybe it's about pride. People kill for smaller things. Agatha shook her head slowly. No, something financial, something immediate, something tied to the plot's future. She stared out the window, watching dusk fold over the village. The answer wasn't in the schoolroom. It wasn't in dusty invoices. It was in fresh soil, fresh lies, fresh desperation. Trevor is involved somehow, she said quietly, but he may not be the one who finished her. Roy tilted his head. Meaning? Meaning the motive might be buried beside Penny's precious petunias. Hodge leapt down, stretching luxuriously, tail flicking. Agatha sighed. Yes, yes, I'll get there. The kettle clicked off, filling the cottage with warm quiet. Roy murmured, Darling, you'll solve it. You always do. Agatha poured tea. I just hope Bill realizes I'm ahead of him. Hodge rubbed against her leg, the smallest encouragement. Agatha took a sip, eyes narrowing thoughtfully. Tomorrow I go back to the plot. Penny's past gave me distraction. Her present will give me truth. Hodge yawned, clearly unimpressed, but he stayed beside her. Bill Wong, don't pretend you didn't see me, Agatha called, striding toward him outside the Mercester police station. Bill stopped mid-step, shoulders sagging. Agatha, I'm late for a meeting. Nonsense, she said briskly. You're early for coffee. Before he could protest, she seized his sleeve and marched him toward the small cafe across the road. Bill, resigned, followed with the air of a man accepting his fate. They slipped into a booth, Agatha already signalling the waitress as though she owned the establishment. Bill folded his hands. Agatha, you can't keep pressuring me for information. I don't pressure, she said sweetly. I merely encourage. You interrogate. If you shared freely, interrogation wouldn't be necessary. Bill's sigh fogged his glasses, but she saw the faint smile he tried to suppress. He did like her, just wished she were quieter, calmer, and significantly less involved in murder inquiries. Once their coffees arrived, Agatha leaned forward. Right, Penny's finances. Tell me. Bill winced. I didn't say I'd tell. You sat down. That's consent. He rubbed his face. Agatha. Then, deciding resistance was pointless, he lowered his voice. Fine. Penny's bank statements show regular payments from Trevor Beach's firm, labelled consultancy. Agatha blinked. Consultancy? Penny? She was advising Trevor on his garden care workshops. That's what the paperwork claims. But the amounts were high, suspiciously high. Blackmail, Agatha breathed. All legitimate advice, Bill countered, though her recent emails suggest otherwise. Agatha nearly spilled her drink. Emails? She drafted several messages to trading standards, mentioned concerns about invoice irregularities, product mislabeling, potential fraud. Agatha slapped the table. Trevor had motive. Strong motive. Or she misinterpreted something, Bill said, ever cautious. Bill, please. Penny misinterpreted nothing. She was a walking rulebook. Bill continued. We haven't finished going through everything yet. But yes, Trevor's financial dealings with her look messy. Agatha's eyes gleamed. Motive, opportunity, access, long history. Agatha, Bill warned, do not confront him. Of course not, she lied smoothly. They parted outside the cafe with Bill muttering that he'd regret this for days. Agatha marched toward the car, triumphant. Trevor Beach, cheery fool extraordinaire, was sitting on a pile of secrets. Back in Carsley, she collected Charles, who had been enjoying a late breakfast and was nowhere near ready for a morning of sleuthing. I don't see why I have to come, he complained as she practically shoved him into her hatchback. You're my assistant. I never agreed to that. Well, you agreed to lunch, which is the same thing. At the plot, the bright cold morning had given way to a crisp stillness, enough to make the raised beds look suspiciously well behaved. Saskia was fussing near the shed, rearranging a stack of empty pots with the frantic energy of someone determined not to think about death on her premises. Agatha approached. Morning, Saskia. Tidying? Saskia jumped. Oh, Mrs. Raisin, yes. Trying to restore order. The police were here again. Find anything? Saskia swallowed. They mentioned the missing weed killer bottle. The concentrated one. Yes, I swear it was here before the fete. Charles peered into the shed. It's very clean in here. I tidied, Saskia said quickly. The place looked awful when she... Tidying destroys evidence, Agatha said pointedly. Saskia looked stricken. I didn't mean... I just panicked. Agatha stepped inside the shed. Shelves gleamed from a recent scrub, but one rectangle of bare wood marked a conspicuously empty space. Someone took that bottle, she murmured. Not spilled, not lost. Taken. Gavin emerged from behind the tea room, wiping compost off his hands. Saskia leaves keys everywhere, he muttered. Anyone could have taken it. Saskia reddened. I do not. You do, Gavin snapped. You left them on a cake stand last week. That was one time. Trevor, appearing with unfortunate timing, strolled up carrying a box of new sample tubs. Good news, he chirped. Fresh stock. Free for all. Boost morale. Agatha glared. Trevor, where do you keep your keys? Always on the hook by the tea room door, he said cheerfully. Well, most of the time. That hook was empty yesterday. Trevor blinked. Was it? Must have slipped my mind. Busy week. Agatha exchanged a glance with Charles. Everyone was pointing fingers. Everyone had access. Everyone had motive. Delicious chaos. They moved toward the tea room's back corridor next. A faint, irregular streak marked the lower wall, diluted but unmistakably blue. Agatha touched it, then sniffed her finger. Chemical. Same color as the crystals that killed my petunias. Charles leaned in. Splashed recently? Judging by streaking, yes. Saskia hurried over. Please ignore that. I scrubbed after the fate. Someone knocked over a tub. I didn't see who. I just cleaned. Agatha narrowed her eyes. You're cleaning too much. I'm trying to make this place look respectable, Saskia cried. Everyone is saying it's cursed. Agatha turned to the kitchen. A stack of mugs sat drying by the sink. One, placed off to the side, held a faint pink ring. Lipstick. Penny's colour. Agatha picked it up. Why is this separate? Saskia paled. I washed everything. The police were coming, so You destroyed evidence, Agatha said. I didn't mean to. Charles softened. She panicked, Aggie. Agatha bristled at Aggie, but let it pass. Gavin barged in again. Trevor was in here before the ceremony, helping with drinks. I saw him washing something. Trevor, overhearing, squeaked, Helping! Just helping! Why? Agatha demanded. Trevor backed up until he hit the counter. I wanted things perfect. For the photos. Penny always said my presentation was sloppy. Charles folded his arms. Sloppy enough to leave stains, or create them. Trevor sputtered incoherently. Mabel Clegg swept through the tea-room doorway like an ill omen. Some people, she muttered loudly, are better off gone. Agatha pounced. Meaning? Mabel huffed. Meaning the plot ran smoother before Penny bossed everyone. Don't twist my words. If I killed everyone who annoyed me, I'd have to hire a groundskeeper for the cemetery. Charles murmured. Charming woman. A suspect, Agatha muttered. Not a very likely one, Charles replied. Everyone is likely until I say they're not. Agatha and Charles left the tea room for a circuit of the grounds. The morning sunshine burned off the cold, but Agatha barely noticed. Her mind hummed with clues. Trevor's consultancy payments, Penny's planned report to trading standards, the missing bottle. Blue crystals splashed against the wall. Penny's mug washed too fast. Saskia's nerves frayed to threads. Gavin's obsession with chemicals and fury at the mention of weed killer. Mabel's bitterness curling like smoke. They paused by Penny's bed. Everything leads back to Trevor, Agatha murmured. Which may mean he's innocent, Charles said lightly. Too obvious. Or guilty and stupid. Both common in men, Charles mused. She smacked his arm. Agatha crouched, examining the soil. A faint indentation near the back edge suggested something heavy had rested there. A bottle shape, perhaps. This might have been where the missing weed killer was placed before being moved. Meaning someone planned the scene. Meaning someone planned something, Agatha said darkly. A chilly breeze stirred the foxglove stalk. Agatha watched it sway, sinister and elegant. Foxglove killed her. Who placed it here remains the question. No accidents? Not with Penny. They continued through the plot. Gavin was now lecturing a bewildered couple on the dangers of synthetic fertilizers. Saskia was wiping down tables for the third time. Trevor was performing customer service like a man in a hostage situation. Mabel pruned roses viciously. All suspects, Agatha muttered. All flawed, Charles murmured, which is why I'll catch one. Agatha pulled the tea-room door shut behind them and walked Charles to her car. Trevor is frightened, she said as they reached the lane. He's always frightened, Charles said. It's his natural state, like a squirrel wearing aftershave. No, Agatha said slowly. This is different. He's hiding something big. Charles leaned against the car. Let's review. Penny received payments from Trevor. She was preparing to expose him. She died drinking from a mug he had access to. Blue chemical stains matched the crystals from your bed. The missing bottle was near his demonstration table. Agatha nodded. He had motive, the strongest. If she reported him, he'd lose everything. And Saskia? Desperate, but not a killer, Agatha said, unless panic can poison plants. Gavin? Too earnest, too loud, too messy. Mabel? Too honest about wanting people gone. Charles smiled. So Trevor is your man. Agatha exhaled. Perhaps, but something still bothers me. If he was hiding financial irregularities, why involve Penny at all? Why pay her? Why let her near the plot? Charles shrugged. People make stupid business decisions. Trevor makes stupid life decisions, Agatha corrected, but this feels deliberate. They returned to Castley on foot, enjoying the crisp air. Well, Charles enjoyed it. Agatha marched, deep in thought. As her cottage came into view, she slowed. Everything revolves around Trevor, she murmured, but he acts cornered, not triumphant. Cornered men slip. That sounds like experience, Charles said. Shut up. Inside, Hodge lifted his head from the armchair cushion and blinked. Slow judgment. Agatha dropped her bag beside him. We're close, she said. Trevor's facade is cracking. Hodge stretched luxuriously as though unimpressed with her progress. Agatha boiled the kettle. The warm hum soothed her nerves. If Trevor's payments were bribes, why record them? If they were legitimate, why fear investigation? Hodge flicked an ear. Agatha smiled faintly. Exactly. It doesn't add up. Steam curled from the kettle. The cottage settled into familiar quiet. Agatha whispered, Tomorrow, I squeeze Trevor until he squeaks. Hodge yawned, signalling approval, or boredom. Either way, Agatha felt renewed determination. Trevor's cheeriness hid something very dark, and she intended to dig until it surfaced. Bill Wong, if you don't stop looking weary, people will assume I'm bullying you, Agatha snapped, marching beside him toward the raised beds at the plot. The morning felt sharply defined, like newly washed glass, but she refused to let him open with weather. This was her investigation. Bill sighed. I said you could come because you keep uncovering details my team missed. Don't push it. Agatha beamed in triumph. I never push. I merely lead. Charles trailed behind them, hands in pockets, wearing boredom like a tailored coat. This is going to be marvelous, he murmured. Agatha interrogating vegetables again. Shut up, Charles, Bill cleared his throat. Trading standards confirm the rumors. Trevor's firm has been watering down or mislabeling products for years. Penny knew. He paid her consultancy fees to keep quiet. Lately she threatened to report him. Finally grew a conscience, Charles said. Finally got tired of him, Agatha corrected. She always enjoyed leverage. They stopped at Penny's plot. It looked deceptively tidy, the kind of neatness only the dead leave behind. Agatha crouched, eyeing the foxglove plants clustered behind the petunias. These are wrong, Bill frowned. Wrong how? They're stunted, recently planted. The soil round the base is different. There's less grit. Charles, reluctantly armed with a trowel, poked the patch. You owe me lunch if this turns out to be compost and worms. Dig, Agatha ordered. He dug. A scrap of laminated card surfaced, half rotted but readable enough. Lemon balm, Garden Fresh Centre. Agatha snatched it. A herb tray label, but these foxgloves clearly grew here instead. So someone swapped trays, Bill said, straightening, using packaging that would fool Penny in a hurry. Trevor sells trays and labels, Agatha said. He stocked the school years ago, remember? He's been around her forever. Bill exhaled slowly. Let's find him. Trevor appeared before he could be summoned, sauntering up the path with forced cheer. Morning. Hope the investigation isn't ruining the mood. His grin flickered, then steadied. Agatha stepped forward. Trevor, we found foxgloves planted where lemon balm was meant to be. Care to explain? Trevor stiffened. I wouldn't know. Penny must have planted them herself. Try again. Agatha's stare sharpened. She knew exactly how dangerous foxglove is. Digitalis is only fatal in high doses, Trevor said. Like the... He froze. Bill's eyebrows rose. Like the what, Trevor? The amount found in her system, Trevor muttered. That's what I heard. Nobody has released the dosage, Bill said softly. Not even to staff. Trevor's eyes darted toward the shed. Saskia hovered nearby, pale and brittle as if the plot itself might collapse at any moment. Trevor, she whispered, you said you were sorting deliveries that morning. He had keys, Agatha said to Bill, access whenever he liked. Trevor backed away, blustering. Penny begged for help. She wanted her teas to zing. I told her foxglove was medicinal but dangerous in the wrong concentration. If she mixed it wrong... Interesting, Agatha said. Penny may have been foolish, but she wasn't suicidal, and she never muddled her herbs. Trevor's bravado crumbled. She said she'd ruin me. She threatened trading standards. I couldn't. She didn't understand what exposing me would do. Kill your business, Charles suggested, or kill your reputation. Trevor's breath hitched. It was an accident. I only meant to frighten her, show her she needed me. You planted foxglove in her bed, Agatha said, and you laced the tisane she brewed. You hoped confusion or appearance of self-infliction would protect you. Trevor's expression spasmed. She wasn't supposed to drink it. She always drank her own teas first, Agatha said simply. A dreadful silence hung. Then Trevor bolted, sprinting between beds like a startled deer. Oh, for heaven's sake, Agatha snapped, launching after him, then immediately regretting it as one heel sank deep into the soil. Why do murderers insist on running? She kicked off the offending shoe and charged on, furious and lopsided. Charles groaned. Bill swore and followed. Trevor reached the shed door, fumbling at the latch. Saskia squealed. Gavin appeared, startled, holding a watering can like a weapon. Trevor hit a slick patch of compost, windmilled wildly, and plunged headfirst into a decorative water butt with a tremendous splash. Bill hauled him out by the collar as Agatha arrived, breathless, shouting abuse, and Charles strolled up last, looking disgustingly composed. Trevor sagged. She was going to expose me. I only swapped the seedlings. I thought she'd notice and confront me privately. Then I saw her brewing that tea. I panicked. I topped up the herb tray with leaves from the foxgloves. Just a few. She'd smell it, realize, shout at me, drop the threat. But she didn't smell it, Bill said. Digitoxin is bitter only after infusion. Trevor nodded, crying now. I didn't want her dead. I wanted her scared. I didn't think... Agatha huffed. Men rarely do. Bill signaled for backup from his radio. The early morning plot, bright and sharp, now felt strangely hollow. Saskia sat heavily on a bench. My business is finished. It isn't, Agatha said, surprisingly gentle. You didn't kill anyone. He merely used your keys and your trust. Gavin muttered, almost kindly. You'll rebuild. People like plants more than they like gossip. Bill guided Trevor toward the path as officers arrived. Agatha stepped aside, chest heaving from her heroic, if undignified, tackle. Bill, she said, I expect credit for this in your report. He smiled faintly. You'll get exactly as much credit as procedure allows. So none, Charles said. Bill gave a helpless shrug. Agatha looked around the plot. The beds, the herbs, the faint smell of soil, everything ordinary again, except that Penny was gone and Trevor's prints lay everywhere now. Bill dropped by briefly to take her statement, then returned after dark to finish the formalities, leaving her alone with Hodge and a kettle that sounded far too calm for murder. Back in her cottage, Agatha tossed her ruined shoes aside and sank into her chair. Hodge leapt into her lap, purring smugly, as though he alone had solved the case. The kettle gave a soft sigh in the kitchen. Agatha stroked the cat. Well, Hodge, at least someone appreciates my brilliance. Hodge stretched, blinked, and pawed at her sleeve, unimpressed. Agatha snorted. Fine. I'll take that as applause. And with the warm, ordinary sound of a kettle settling and a cat purring contentedly, Agatha Raisin allowed herself, just for a moment, to feel the quiet satisfaction of having dug up the truth.